What if everything you believed about money was completely wrong? Bank manager David sat in that barber chair every 2 weeks, telling the barber exactly what to do with his money. Invest it, grow it, stop leaving it on the table. And the barber just smiled and kept cutting. 2 years later, one of them lost everything. The other one bought 2 businesses for pennies on the dollar. You won't believe which one. On East 6th Street in Austin, Texas, there was a small barber shop, 2 chairs, 1 old fan, a flickering neon sign out front. Nothing fancy, nothing impressive, just a man who had been cutting hair in that same spot for 11 years. The barber wasn't rich, he wasn't poor either. He worked hard, kept his expenses lean, and every single month, no matter what, he put cash aside. Not in the market, not in an index fund, just cash, sitting in his account, ready. Most people thought he was crazy, especially bank manager David. Bank manager David worked at the Wells Fargo branch right down the street. Sharp suit, sharp opinions. He came in every 2 weeks, sat in that chair, and without fail started talking. You know the S&P 500 averages 10% a year, right? That cash you're sitting on is losing value every single day. Inflation is running at 3%. You're literally paying to hold it. The barber would nod, keep cutting. Dead money, bank manager David would say, shaking his head. You're leaving real money on the table. The barber never argued. He just smiled and said, I hear you, David. But he never changed a thing. Then 2020 hit. Austin froze. The whole country froze. Wells Fargo announced layoffs, 700 employees. Bank manager David got the call on a Tuesday morning. Just like that, the expert was out of a job. His portfolio dropped 40% in a matter of weeks. He had a mortgage on his house in Cedar Park, 2 kids in school. Everything he had was tied up in investments that were bleeding out in real time. On paper, he looked like a man with assets. In real life, he couldn't cover next month's bills without selling at the worst possible time.
He was trapped, completely frozen, not because he was stupid, because he had no liquidity, no options, no cash. The barber shop closed for 6 weeks, but the barber wasn't panicking. He had 2 years of expenses sitting in cash, not because he didn't understand investing, because he understood something bank manager David had missed entirely. Cash isn't dead money. Cash is options. While bank manager David was in survival mode, the barber was paying attention. A shop owner 2 blocks away was desperate. His business was underwater and he needed out fast. He sold that second location for 40 cents on the dollar. The barber bought it without hesitating. Then he called his broker and bought a basket of stocks while the market was on its knees. Index funds, the same ones bank manager David had always preached about, except now they were on sale. 6 weeks later, Austin started opening back up. Bank manager David walked into the barber shop, different energy, quieter. He sat down in that same chair, and for the first time in years, he didn't say a word about money. The barber picked up his scissors, started cutting, let the silence sit for a moment. Then he spoke. Cash isn't about being scared, David. It's about being ready. When everyone else is frozen, cash lets you move. That's not dead money. That's loaded money. Bank manager David stared at himself in the mirror. He had spent years optimizing for returns on a spreadsheet. He had never once optimized for freedom, for options, for the ability to act when others couldn't. He had been technically right about everything and practically wrong about what mattered most. 3 years later, the barber owned 3 locations across East Austin. He still cut hair himself most mornings, still kept cash reserves that would make most financial advisors nervous. Bank manager David still came in every 2 weeks, but these days he came to listen. One afternoon he asked, "How much cash do you actually keep?" The barber looked at him in the mirror and said simply, "Enough to never feel trapped." My friend, this story is not just about a barber and a bank manager. It is about the difference between looking smart on paper and actually being free in real life. Cash is not weakness. Cash is not fear. Cash is the ability to move when everyone else is standing still. If this story changed how you think about money, like this video and subscribe to this channel, because this is where we tell the stories of people who figured out what the experts never explain.